undermining Taylor Swift if she does, in fact, come out and endorse Biden.
Right. Like, these are people that cannot be trusted. And also, I think it's separate but related. When you look at Travis Kelce, there's also been conspiracy theorizing around him because he's been an advocate for the COVID vaccines, which fits deeply into the same sort of corners of conspiracy theorizing about government and government control. So it rings all the bells of people who are sort of already inclined to believe that there is deep, dark, nefarious things happening behind the scenes in government.
One last question for you, Shannon. I mean, we talk about conspiracy theories and we kind of jokingly refer to them initially as being from the corners of the internet. But one of the things that I think is really alarming to me as someone who covers politics is that things do come and they trickle down into, say, partisan news sources, and then they trickle down into like late night comedy shows. And what was once just in the dark corners maybe of the internet are actually able to influence they're able to influence the conversation writ large. And that to me is concerning.
I totally agree. I mean, I think that is a concern. And we've seen this happen before, right? I mean, this has very much been the trajectory of the idea that our, elections are rigged or somehow insecure, right? Or that there's, you should be suspicious of various methods of voting. We've even seen the same thing happen with QAnon conspiracy theories, which very much did start sort of in the dark corners of the internet. And then there are sort of pieces of these, bizarre, baseless, and often violent QAnon beliefs that are now accepted by surprisingly large numbers of people. And so exactly, I mean, like Sue said, it can be sort of easy to this is very silly in a lot of ways. It seems kind of nonsense and maybe it seems harmless, but this is the kind of stuff that gets kind of baked into broader culture and ultimately kind of erodes our ability to sort of trust and believe in anything.
I mean, there was a really interesting poll that YouGov put out at the end of last year that asked American attitudes towards this whole range of different conspiracy theories that have been popular over the years. And what it tells you is that there is a significant chunk of the electorate, although it probably depends on the conspiracy, that does believe in these certain ideas. It's anywhere between 20 to 50% of the country, depending on what type of conspiracy theory you ask them about. So I do think that this is just a part of the electorate. It is a real part of the electorate. My caveat, I would say, is I still don't view this as the sort of critical voter of 2024. I think that if anything, when we talk about swing voters, independents, suburban women, they tend to not be a huge chunk of this type of voter. And if anything, the party that is seen as being popularizing these or embracing these could actually be sort of a turnoff for someone who's not deeply invested in these sort of conspiratorial ideas.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I always say covering this beat is everyone probably believes in some kind of conspiracy theory or some kind of really out there idea. And probably most of those beliefs are not particularly harmful because we're not acting on them. It's when we have the intersection of people acting on these beliefs in ways that are fundamentally anti-democratic that we need to get worried.
And on that note, Shannon, I presume this will not be the last time that we talk to you this election cycle. But let's take a quick break and we're going to be back in a moment with Can't Let It Go. And we're back, and it's time now for Can't Let It Go. That's the part of the show where we talk about the things that we just cannot stop thinking about, politics or otherwise. And this week, folks, I actually have a political one.
Oh,
I know, it's kind of unusual. So last Sunday, the former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, was on CNN. And this made quite a bit of the rounds, so you all may have already heard of this story. But I seriously cannot let this go. So she was on CNN's, I think it was State of the Union, and she was talking about protests of the Gaza war and said essentially that these were, quote, connected to Russia.
For them to call for a ceasefire is Mr. Putin's message. Some of these protesters are spontaneous and organic and sincere. Some, I think, are connected to Russia.
And she goes on to say that she thinks some of the financing should be investigated by the FBI. Now, I will say, to be clear, having covered elections for a while, I don't think that you can rule out that any country, say Russia, any adversary, might try to, amplify dissent ahead of a political election. I think that is a natural. The UN had a vote back in December. 153 countries called for a ceasefire. You look at the polling in the own Democratic Party, and this is an increasingly popular opinion to call for a ceasefire amongst Democrats. And I just have not been able to let it go because I feel like take away the substance of what she was saying. I was like, who thought this was a good message for Democrats to say out loud when they are already on, pins and needles trying to win back their young black and brown voters? So that is what I have not been able to let go.
Having covered Pelosi for a long time, I think it is fair to say that she is not always the best messenger for the party and has often been articulate in explaining her positions on things. But I agree with you. I mean, there may be some substance to what she said. We certainly know that foreign adversaries try to see these divisions in American society and exploit them. But this isn't the kind of thing, especially in such a heated political moment and in an issue that so divides your own party, that you can just sort of casually drop without any receipts. Like, if you have reason to believe that, like, expound on it, explain it, like, point to something. Otherwise, it's only going to sort of kick up more opposition to you.
And we were talking about erosion of trust, and I think this is kind of how that happens too. I mean, there's a concept, it tends to be brought up around AI, this idea called the liar's dividend, which is that, like, I don't need to actually make a fake AI image of something. I can claim something real is AI generated, right? And like undermine confidence. And I think there's like a version of that where it's just like if everything can be an operation, everything can be foreign influence, everything can be fake, then nothing can be real. And that's really harmful for our ability to talk about really tough issues.
All right. Well, Shannon, what can you not let go of?
So